Anybody else?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yeah. Great. My name is Karen Leo Hill. I am honored to serve as the Executive Counselor for District 2, which includes 81 cities and towns, including the great city of Keene and much of western New Hampshire and the Monadnock region. We are so fortunate to have our Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander with us today. She has obviously a lot to talk about, and it's obvious by the size of the crowd here today that we have a lot to talk about as well. There's going to be a time to hear from her as well as a time to ask questions, and I know many of you have provided questions, and we're so fortunate to have President Melinda Treadwell from Keene State College with us today, who will be moderating the question and answer portion. As I introduce our Congresswoman, and before I do that, I actually would like to acknowledge that we have a number of our elected officials here with us as well. I know we have members of the Keene City Council here, if you would stand. We also have members of the State House of Representatives here, if you would stand. And I know that we have at least one of our Cheshire County Commissioners here. I saw Terry here. If you would wave to recognize us. As a 20-year city councilor myself, in Lebanon, just up the river, I know how concerned we all are at the local level, at the county level, now as an executive counselor at the state level, how concerned we are about what is happening in Washington, D.C. There is so much uncertainty, and there is a barrage of really upsetting things that are happening on a daily basis. But we are very fortunate to have someone who is a very hard-working, smart, dedicated individual who is bringing our questions and raising our issues in Washington, D.C. Last week, I had the privilege of touring Dartmouth Health together with our Congresswoman, and we met with the president of Dartmouth Health, with the president of CHAD, the Children's Hospital, as well as the Cancer Center, and she is focused in like a laser on how Medicaid, potentially the cuts to Medicaid, could impact our state. She had questions so that she could get the information she needs to make the best case possible in Washington about why we need to stop the bad things from happening. And so I was really struck by getting to spend a little time with her, just how hard she is working and how lucky we are to have her on our side. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Congresswoman, Maggie Goodlander.
To be back in Keene, and on a Friday afternoon, I know you've got a lot of places you could be. I'm really grateful to each and every one of you here in this room and in the room upstairs. We're here in the largest public library in the state of New Hampshire, and it's a beautiful library. So I'm really grateful to the Keene Public Library for opening up this incredible space, to my incredible partners here in Keene City Council, the biggest city council, I think, in the state of New Hampshire. We've been incredible partners to our state reps, to our county commissioners who are here today, to Executive Counselor Karen Leo Hill. Governing is a team sport, but the beating heart of our democratic government, of our constitutional government here in the United States of America, are we the people, and it's each and every one of you who are here this afternoon. So I want to thank you. Every time I get a microphone, I think of the words of FDR. He said this thing, which was to be brief, be sincere, and be seated. I'm not going to try to sit on that stool, but I am going to put my Constitution there because I keep it on me all the time, and I think we may be referencing it today. Amen. Let's give it up for the Constitution. It's a beautiful document. I do want to be brief at the outset because I'm really eager to hear what's on your minds and what's in your hearts, because today is exactly 56 days that I've been on this job. I took the oath of office, I swore on that very Constitution 56 days ago today, and I can be best at my job of representing you when I hear directly from you, and there is no substitute for showing up and from talking to one another in person. And so that's why I wanted to be here today, and I want to really hear from you today and in every day in the days ahead. We've been hearing from, for a small state, the 2nd District is a pretty big one. 6,500 square miles from Nashua all the way up to the North Country, from Alstead to Atkinson, from Lebanon all the way to Litchfield. We've got a big district with a lot of people. And what I'd say, there are 3 through lines from what I've heard. And we've reached out to and heard from tens of thousands of people in New Hampshire over the last 56 days. We've heard, number one, the pain that people are feeling. And I'm never going to sugarcoat it. I'm always going to be straight with you. We may not always agree, but I'm going to be straight with you. And what I'm hearing are people who are feeling a lot of pain right now. Pain from high prices, high cost of living, whether it's housing. We've got, whether you're a person who is renting a home, trying to buy a home, the cost of housing is through the roof in the state. And I want to get to work to lower the cost of housing. Talk about childcare. In this room, raise your hand if you're paying too much for childcare. Okay. Or you know someone who's paying too much for childcare. All right, there we have it. We're talking about an average of $32,000 a year for hardworking families in New Hampshire. I encourage you all to take a look. The New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute just published an important report. In the year 2023, more than $170 million in lost wages because of the cost of childcare in this state. The costs are too high. We haven't even gotten to eggs now. The cost of eggs in the year 2025 alone is up 40%. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture anticipates it's going to be up another 40%. Our fellow citizens, people in this state, people in this room, people across our country are feeling a lot of pain from high costs. Now, I'm representing you in the People's House. I want to get to work to lower the high cost of living, but what we're up against right now is true chaos and uncertainty that's being driven across the board. I'm talking about the chaos that has flowed from lawless layoffs of federal workers from across our federal government. Just before coming here this afternoon, I was in Nashua talking to some extraordinary air traffic controllers, whether it's aviation safety, food safety, water safety. We're talking about our teachers, people who are serving our public, federal workers, have been treated with such indignity and have been put in an impossible situation in so many instances. It's the uncertainty that flows from the weaponization of federal funding. And I see that across the board. We've seen that from really over the last month, every single day in different ways. Now, one thing that we can be very certain about is that appropriations laws are law. Period, full stop. This is a proposition that has been called into question by some of my colleagues. These are laws that Congress writes and a president has signed. And I am here to tell you that I will be fighting for every single dollar that has been promised to the state of New Hampshire, and I'm going to fight to make sure that those dollars flow to our communities. Because we're talking about, thank you. We're talking about feeding our kids. We're talking about keeping our water clean and safe for drinking. The federal, it cannot be overstated. And I'm eager to hear how it's impacted you We've been collecting stories from all across New Hampshire, and I share them with my colleagues every single day that I'm on the floor of the House of Representatives. I find them wherever they are because I want to bring your voices and your stories to Congress, because we live in a constitutional democracy with 3 co-equal branches of government that is ruled by we the people. And we can never forget that, and I will never forget that as I'm representing you in Congress. I want to say, too, that one of the through lines, in addition to the high cost of living and the uncertainty that people are feeling, there's a lot of talk about corruption, and we've got to keep talking about it. Because what we have right now in this country is an unelected billionaire who is using a social media platform that he owns to try to direct federal workers across the board. And this is not right. This is not right. This is not what anyone signed up for. It's not what any of us signed up for. I am all about going after waste, fraud, and abuse, and just this week, on a bipartisan basis, we passed a piece of legislation that's going to do exactly that and help protect our small businesses and the Small Business Administration from waste, fraud, and abuse. But this is not a way to govern. This is not governing. So what I want to tell you is, as you look at this situation, the chaos that we see, the uncertainty that so many of us are feeling, there might be 2 ways to approach this. You know, I'm a freshman member of the House of Representatives. I'm not in the majority. You know, some might say, sit back, watch the other side implode. But of course, that is not the New Hampshire way. That is not what you sent me to Congress to do. And I am truly constitutionally incapable of sitting back and watching anything happen. I am waking up every single day and using every single tool at my disposal to fight for you and to deliver for you. And that is the sacred oath that I took 56 days ago. It's the honor of my lifetime to represent you in Congress. And I want you to know I'm fighting with everything I've got every single day to deliver for you and to deliver for this country. So I look forward to your questions. I want to pass it along to you, and I want to thank Keene State College for helping us bring this event together, and for all the amazing work you do, and to the great president of Keene State College, President Treadwell, to help us moderate this.
Thank you, Representative Goodlander. It is such a privilege to be here. Do you want me to switch? Switch here. Is this the one that faces it? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Is it good? You can hear me. Okay. No, you can't hear me. Hold on. She's turning it up. We'll keep trying. We're going to get feedback is what's going to happen. Okay, so let me get over here so that we'll start, and then, where did she go? Oh, can you hear me? Not really.
Just use the other.
Okay, just use this one. Is that okay? And we'll share the microphone and I'll get out of the way. So thank you, Representative Goodlander. It's an absolute privilege to stand here with you. Thank you for your service. 56 days feels like a lifetime. A long year. So my name is Melinda Treadwell. I'm honored to serve the institution, Keene State College, our students, faculty, and staff in this entire community. I've been a resident of Keene for well over 20 years, and it's my privilege to be here tonight to moderate the Q&A. So let me go over some rules, just to give you a sense. We have a really wonderfully open and equal way that we're going to ask anyone who entered the room, you received a ticket. And there was a stub on one half that you kept, and there's a stub that I have all of the stubs in this basket. And so I'm going to draw out 5 questions to start. If I call your number, if you could come to the microphone in the center of the room. And as Representative Goodlander has shared with us, what we would really enjoy is a conversation. And so as you come to the microphone, if you could share your name, where you're from, and why you chose to take time today to come here. Why did you choose to come to join us this afternoon? And we'll go through those questions. I'll call 5 at a time, and then we'll see how long we can go with this. Does that sound okay? So thank you, and let me begin by reading the first 5. This is to give everyone an opportunity to get to the microphone. So the numbers, I believe, all begin with 873, so I won't keep repeating those. So the first number is 069. This feels a bit like we're playing bingo or some sort of raffle. Number 1 enterprise for our students, they love bingo. So I get to call bingo often. 025. And if you don't put your hand up or pop up, I'm going to keep reading. So 069, 025. What I didn't think about was people who are upstairs who might have drawn those numbers. You have a microphone upstairs as well. They'll come down, okay. Are there 2 people coming down the stairs? Okay. 022. Yes. 022. I'm going to read a few more numbers as we come up. 003. Sorry. 111. Great. If you can make your way up and queue up in the line. 032. 032. 072. There we go. So we'll start there. Representative Goodlander.
So much.
So much. I'm a high school science teacher. Let me see how far away. I'm a high school science teacher. Okay, good. I'm not going to ask you about education because we're kind of screwed on that. But I'm going to ask you, what can we do as New Hampshire people to protect our national parks? They are our biggest jewel. What can we do, because we know you're doing the best you can do, what can we do to make sure our parks are protected?
Well, thank you. First, let me just say, thank you for your service to our country, to this community. I feel like I want to come back to your science class because I left a lot on the table when I was myself a student of science. But science has never been more important, and our teachers have never been more important. And I will never stop fighting for the Department of Education and for our teachers. So your presence here today is a testament to, when I meet our teachers, just yesterday, I met a teacher from Allenstown who was performing. She's an amazing singer. She's in a two-person band. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the question that you asked about our national parks too. So number one, for me right now, we are getting every single day reports of federal workers who are either fearful that they're going to be fired or who have been fired, and we're collecting information as best we can. We've got to stand up, number one, and speak out for our federal workers, including those who work in our national parks, White Mountain National Forest. So, number one, we need to hear your voices on their behalf for our fellow citizens. Number two, we've got to visit and lift up our national parks because they are in danger, and they are. I think we've got here someone from Florentine Films, the great Dan White. If you haven't seen Ken Burns' documentary about our national parks, I urge you all to see it, because this is part of what makes America great. And Congress has written laws that protect our national parks, and we the people have got to stand up for those who work, federal workers in our national parks, and for the parks themselves, the land itself. So thank you
very much. Keep up the good work.
I'm Annie Johnson. I'm from Alstead. I'm retired, mostly from human services. So I never made a lot of money, but now I'm on Medicare and Social Security, and I'm praying every month that I'm going to get paid my Social Security income, because it's my only income right now. Just been diagnosed with a heart condition. I don't know if my heart can take what's going on in Washington right now. It's pretty scary, and I think I'm probably not alone in being nervous about getting paid our Social Security every month, am I right?
Yeah.
You guys keep your hands on the money and get your hands back on the money, because it's really scary out there. Also, I'm a blue sky now, not Twitter anymore, not Facebook. And it's a really great place to be. If you could just show a little more about what you're doing, anything you want to say on Blue Sky, I'll be there. I'll be reposting it.
Well, we are proudly on Blue Sky, so I'm very happy to be there with you. And I'm grateful to you for being here today and for what you shared. People are afraid of what's going to happen to their Social Security, to their Medicare, to Medicaid, and people are afraid about what's going to happen to their personal information. So when we talk about unelected billionaires who are trying to govern on social media platforms, these people have no place in our most sensitive databases. They shouldn't be touching your personal information or your Social Security dollars. There's no need for it. We can run an efficient government. We can cut waste, fraud, and abuse without touching the benefits that you've been paid. These aren't just entitlements. These are sacred promises that we've made to one another. Social Security, Medicare. A lot of unelected billionaires have no business touching your personal data or the things that we have promised to you that you've been paying into for your entire working life. So when I say that I will fight with everything I've got and I will not stop fighting to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, I really mean it. And when it comes to your personal information in these databases, you shouldn't have to be. We need to be protecting your heart and your hard-earned dollars. And that's what I'm fighting to do. You shouldn't have to worry about whether you're going to see those dollars in your bank account. There are gaps in federal law when it comes to who should be accessing this information, and I'm working really hard to fill them. These are basic common sense solutions to try to solve for this unprecedented but really problematic situation we find ourselves in, where people who are unelected but who have been put in positions of power are not subject to the same kind of rules and restrictions as other government employees, and we're working hard to fill those gaps. I think these are common sense solutions, and I'm not going to stop trying to persuade my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. These should be bipartisan ideas to protect your information and to give you peace of mind, which you truly deserve.
I also volunteer for friendly meals up in Alstead, which is a really important piece of our culture up there. We cover 6 cities and towns there. So
Well, I want to come out and visit you and see the great work you're doing.
Tuesday and Thursday mornings.
I'll be there.
Hi, yes, my name's Robert Grohl. I'm a professor at Brown University where I study climate change.
You're from Alstead too, right?
Yes, I'm
Summer
from
in
Alstead, yes,
It's good
yes,
to see you
yes.
again.
Yes. So here's my question. Right now, basically, the Democrats have no leverage. And we know both the appropriations for the federal government is going to expire, I believe, March 14th. And we're going to run up against the credit limit, which means we have to increase the debt limit. And more, everybody says, you probably know, is that the Republicans are going to need to come to Democrats to pass both an appropriations bill to not shut down the government and an increase in the debt limit to be able to continue borrowing. How are the Democrats going to use those two leverage points to force the Trump administration to actually obey the law?
Well, governing well is about creating leverage wherever you possibly can, and I want to come to your important question because March 14th is an incredibly important date for this country. We saw what happened this week in the House of Representatives with the budget resolution that was a bipartisan group. This was not just Democrats. This was a bipartisan group voted against this resolution, which would increase our deficit, which would give the biggest tax breaks to the billionaires and the biggest corporations in this country, and would pay for all of this by bringing about the biggest cuts to Medicaid in American history. Boo is right. No one ran on this. No one voted for this to happen. The biggest cuts in American history, $880 billion in this budget resolution. Now, we have a system of government that still has 3 co-equal branches, and within the first branch, Article 1, we've got 2 houses of Congress. So this budget resolution, which is an important part of the process of the federal budget, is now with the Senate. And we've already seen Republican senators, and no one should ever bet on making progress in the United States Senate. I'm now a total partisan for the People's House, I'll just say. The number 1 branch created, the very first created under our Constitution, the one closest to the people. But I'm going to keep making the case against this budget resolution. I voted against it because it's bad for New Hampshire. It's bad for the United States of America. It doesn't accomplish any of the things that anyone really voted for. Between increasing the deficit, giving tax breaks to people who do not need tax breaks, billionaires and big corporations, and slicing the biggest cuts to healthcare cuts in American history, cuts to Pell Grants, to Head Start, to SNAP, programs that actually create massive returns on investment. I'm going to fight to protect those things. Now, about creating leverage. This budget resolution was rejected on a bipartisan basis. On a bipartisan basis, we voted against it in the House of Representatives, and we'll see what happens in the Senate. We got to keep lifting up our voices and explaining why this path is not a path that anyone should want to walk down. And we've got to keep making that case. We've got to keep building leverage wherever we possibly can. I just want to share one story because I hope you'll all know I hope we'll have an office in Keene at some point soon. We have a very limited, thank you. But in the meantime, Mayor Khan, who couldn't be here today, has invited us to have office hours, to have a presence in City Hall. We hope to have a presence here in the most beautiful and the biggest public library in the state of New Hampshire, right here. But we also have offices in Concord, in Nashua, in Littleton, and in the Cannon House office building in the House of Representatives. Now, creating leverage in ways big and small. It's a lottery system. I just want to share this with you because this is your office in the Cannon House office building. We had a lottery system to pick our offices in the House of Representatives. And I picked number 10, which was pretty good. I wasn't actually prepared to be so lucky. So I ran all around. I was there with my mom, Betty, who's here this afternoon. We ran all around to try to find it. It's a timed exercise. You have to be in a particular room in the Capitol. It's a 5 minutes on the clock situation. So I had 45 minutes to find the best office for the state of New Hampshire in the House of Representatives. And I found some of them looked like college dorm rooms, I think my mom would say. Some of them looked okay. We found one that looked all right in the Longworth House office building. So I ran to the Capitol. Again, we had 5 minutes on the clock. I had 90 seconds left on the clock. So I was ready to pick the office, 1432 in the Longworth House office building. As I'm about to give them that number, one of my colleagues from the state of Michigan came up to me and said, Maggie, would you consider not picking that office? I said, who on earth are you? Tom Barrett from the state of Michigan. I said, why do you want this office? He said, it was my great-grandfather's office. 70 seconds on the clock. I said, well, that's a pretty good reason. Tom Barrett from Michigan. It's a pretty good reason. Will you co-sponsor 3 bills with me? Maggie, I'll work with anyone. I said, Tom, that's not what I asked. 3 bills. Let's get a picture. From Tom Barrett in Michigan. We've already introduced one, a bipartisan bill that we're hopeful is going to get a hearing in the House Veterans Affairs Committee soon. It's a simple bill that cuts red tape, and it's going to help disabled veterans all across New Hampshire get better access to transportation, the transportation equipment they need. But I mention this because I want to I want to push back on your basic premise that we don't have leverage. We have to create leverage wherever we can, and we've got to fight with everything we've got.
It seems to me, though, that in the meantime, while we're building leverage, the government is being shredded. Shredded. I had friends that know they're out of a job. You know, we're not participating in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change research project. It's just being shredded out. It seems to me that, you know, that the Republicans are going to come over to the Democrats and say, we want your votes to raise the debt limit. We want your votes to, you know, pass this budget and keep the government open. And we say, okay, fine. Here's what we want. And this is what I was looking for. Shut down DOGE. Just shut it down. Shut down. Make Elon Musk go back, go away. Restore USAID exactly the way it was. Put back all the people that run NOAA, the Park Service, the Forest Service, the IRS, etc. Is that, do the Democrats have enough chutzpah to do that? Or are we going to continue to watch as our government gets shredded?
Do it before the vote. Do it first. Make them do it first.
So that's my real question, is that can Democrats actually stand up and prevent it? Because by the time you get done with this, by December, January of next year, the government agencies will be shredded. The people will have to move on. We won't have these, and to rebuild those agencies, I was in the Coast Guard in the 1980s when they were shredded, and it took us 10 years to rebuild that. I don't really think we have 10 years with climate change. And so, you know, I guess I'm asking for where's the real strength and pushback from the Democrats?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for your service in the Coast Guard. What you just listed, you just said lawless firings of federal workers. You just said the weaponization of federal dollars. How do we push back on these things? This is, when I say every tool, I mean every tool. Every legislative tool, every negotiating tool. Hey, I found ways to use the House room lottery to try to leverage everything I can for New Hampshire. And when I say every tool, I mean every tool. So this March 14th deadline is a really important one. We have to be clear-minded about what our tools are and what we're fighting for. And right now, we are fighting for the basic, when I said basic premise, that appropriations laws are laws, that it is not allowed, it is not constitutional to simply cut off federal funding to try to eliminate federal departments and agencies. We've got Congress, we've also got the courts, and I want to say a word about that because courts are an essential, when I say three equal branches of government, it is Congress, the courts, and the executive branch. Now, the courts, we are seeing federal judges across this country. One of the first lawsuits that was filed on January 20th, I think it may have been the first lawsuit, was right here in the state of New Hampshire. The ACLU of New Hampshire, sometimes the Constitution isn't as clear as we would like it to be, but when it comes to birthright citizenship, take a hard look at the first sentence of the 14th Amendment and you have your answer. It says it clear as day. And a federal judge here in New Hampshire put an end to an unlawful executive order. We have got to use every tool we've got in Congress, in the courts, and above all, here in the community. Your voices need to be heard, and we want to keep hearing from you every single day as we work together for our country. Thank
Representative Goodlander, I want to thank you. I know we have a lot of questions, so I want to make sure I call out a few more numbers. I want to thank you for, as the speaker had requested, every element moving forward, and I'm hearing you that is happening. 044 is another question. 044, 042, 033, just want to make sure we get to as many questions as we can. 028, 138, I'm sorry, 116. Right up, Marie. 116059. Okay, you're all hiding your tickets. This is what's that. 131. Just get a few more and then I'll stop and we'll resume again. 084. 108. Okay, someone just stand up and forgive. Is that you? Yes. Okay, there you are.
So I'm Sandy Marchot, and a retired Department of Defense and school teacher. So I appreciate the school question, but I had so many other questions, but that last gentleman hit most of them on the head. So I guess my only question would be, what can we do, the people that are in this room? Because I don't think we can wait 2 years. I mean, I thought we could wait 2 years. We're not. And I'm just gonna sit on you.
Well, thank you for your service, for being here for that question. Because what I want to say, your presence here today, I'm so grateful for it. We have so much expertise in this room. We have so much passion. We have so much heart. And I think we all agree that we cannot wait. Because this is our country. This is our democracy. This is our state. And it's going to take all of us. This is the beautiful thing about New Hampshire. I'm so proud to tell my colleagues in Congress that the state of New Hampshire is the 4th largest legislature in the English-speaking world, which we do. I'm so proud to tell them that New Hampshire is the state that made the nation. We were the 9th state to ratify our Constitution. We are a small state. Every one of us in this room loves it. And we need everyone in this room and across our state to come together and to stand up and to be part of this democracy, to be part of this experiment. And I say experiment because it is an experiment. We are rooted, this whole idea of America is rooted in truths that we call self-evident, but they are not self-executing. They depend on all of us. So one simple but concrete thing that I would encourage you all to do is to sign up, to stay in touch, to share your story, to share your passion and your expertise, and to tell, and when I say expertise, you come from a background where you really understand. I'm so proud to serve on the House Armed Services Committee.
Thank you for that.
I really am proud to do it because we have 8,000 active duty. Well, thank you to your son for his service. We have 8,000 active duty National Guard and Reserve service members right here in New Hampshire. And when everyone in this room has a story. You have experiences that are going to help you inform how we're going to govern in this truly uncertain and chaotic time. So I hope you will stay in touch with us. I hope you will sign up. We want to stay in close touch with you because, as I said at the beginning, the more I can best represent you when I hear from you and when we can work together, because governing is a team effort all the way through. So thank you.
I'm getting this right here. I'm going to follow up on the gentleman from Alstead as well.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Vince Ferlini, taught at Keene State College for 29 years, mathematician. It seems to me in March, what's going to happen, especially with the debt limit, is the Republicans are going to put forward a bill that will raise the debt limit and all the other crap that's going into it. And if it doesn't pass, that could lead to a shutdown. And for Democrats, that seems to be two really bad choices. Have you thought much about that? I certainly wouldn't want to be in your position to have to make a choice like that. But are you prepared to go along with the shutdown? I mean, if it is opposed to voting for a really bad bill.
Well, what I can tell you is, as a person who spent most of my adult life working in the federal government, I've seen the harm that a shutdown can do for workers across the board. You know, for federal workers who are really living paycheck to paycheck, there is nothing more disruptive than a shutdown or than a lawless stop work order or a lawless en masse layoff. So, you know, I hope that you hear me when I say I want to protect federal workers and the federal workforce, and I believe deeply in the work of the federal government. When I vote on a bill, I study it completely from start to finish, and I think, but the number one thing that I do when I'm really trying to understand a piece of legislation, the first question I ask is, what have we heard from people in New Hampshire about this bill? And what does it mean for hardworking people in the Granite State? And that is my North Star. That is the first question I'm gonna ask. And it's what I'm gonna look to in every single day between now and March 14th and every day thereafter as I'm voting on your behalf and representing you in the People's House.
I can appreciate that answer, but it's still, it seems to me they're gonna be two bad choices, is what it's gonna be. And I sympathize with the shutdown. It's not just federal workers that are gonna get hurt, but how about those of us that are in
themselves.
Social Security, on Medicare? It's the same thing. And it's a devil's bargain. I don't know.
You know, this job is full of difficult choices, but what I want you to know is that the thing that I will think about every single day is what this means for you, what this means for hardworking people in New Hampshire. And let's continue the conversation as we see how this turns out. You know, every day on this job, you know, just think about what's happened already this afternoon. We've seen some extraordinary things happen in the Oval Office. Shocking, but somehow unsurprising, but nevertheless shocking. But I'm keeping my eye on the ball, and I want to stay in close conversation with you and everyone here as we go through and what we see what comes up for a vote.
Thank you. My name is Marie Duggan. I teach at Keene State College. I'm an economist and the mother of 2 children, a single mother of 2 children. So first of all, I want to really thank you for calling us together like this. I think that's a very powerful thing to do, and there's really only a few paid members of the government in our state, and you are one of them. And I get so many requests to donate money, and I'm a bit of a sucker, but I frankly think that donating money isn't going to work at all because Peter Thiel and Elon Musk have way more money than we will, so we have to find other ways to fight back. You know, I've lived in Mexico at times and people have nothing and they find ways to fight back, and we can too, but we have to learn to look a little bit to each other and not just to institutions. And but I want to thank you for coming out, and because it makes me feel like there's hope, because you want to listen to us, and you do have a fighting spirit. You're not like James Carville who says, "Oh, we won't do anything; it'll work out." I was like, you know, if that's the Democratic Party's perspective, then we need a new party, because that isn't what I want to do. But I've actually wished to talk to our representatives in this manner for about 15 years. And I wanted to bring out some things that I've often thought that we need to be talking about. One is the opioid epidemic devastated our communities. I knew kids who lost grandparents and lost parents and became basically, you know, 13-year-olds who, I told one, well, for breakfast you can have a big glass of whole milk, because that was one thing she could buy on her own. And that was a situation where I really needed the government. I, as a neighbor, could not really fix that problem. And I don't think the Democrats in this state even really talk to us about it. And that kind of looking at our communities. The high school was a good high school. I moved here because it was a good high school, and it's fallen into disrepair. My daughter was getting no good grades, so I pulled her out and sent her to live with my mother, you know, in another state where she's actually gotten an award for being Youth Poet Laureate. So it's a philosophy that was pushed in by Sununu and Edelblatt, but we never really found a way to fight back. And so I guess I'm asking our representatives in Congress to look more at us inside the state and not just what the national issues are. And of course I care about national issues, but I think if you could lead us to do that, we might all rise to the challenge and find ways to pull together more. Because you're right, we have so much expertise and passion in the room. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot to pick pick up on there, but I wanted to say, just to pick up what you said at the end, governing is really a team effort, and one of the things I believe deeply that one of the things we have to do when we encounter setbacks, when we see chaos, we've got to learn from it and get stronger from it. And one of the things that we've seen clearly from this freeze of federal funding is how deeply interconnected our government is here in New Hampshire, how the federal dollars, which are really $1 in $3 that are spent in this state, are federal dollars, but they're deeply connected to the work that happens on the local level, at the county level, and at the state level. And so it's a team effort, and I'm really grateful to have our partners here at all levels of government.
If I may, I'm just going to hold for 1 second. I'm going to call four more numbers, and I think that's where we'll end the official raffling of questions. Is I think we're coming up to the end here. So 007, 104, 096, 013, 006. Great, I think we have the four, so thank you very much, and we'll go through all these questions, but thank you, Representative Goodlander. Thank you so much for the patience.
Hi, thank you for coming and doing this for us. I appreciate that. We all appreciate having, and my name is Celine Gandolfo, and I'm from Keene. I've been living here about 12 years. I did have my own business in another state for 35 years. But my concern, I hear everybody asking questions that I've been concerned about too. But I'm just baffled as to how, our government is, yes, it's to serve the people. It's we the people. It's we want it to be efficient. And it's not a for-profit business, which anyone they cannot understand how this keeps going on when Congress has been almost impotent, really rendered impotent because of Trump and this whole thing going on. And I know the Republicans have the power, and I'm not speaking as a Republican or Democrat. I'm speaking as an American citizen that's concerned about our government and how legally they're supposed to be vetted. All these Doge team, whoever they are, there's no transparency of who they are, what they're doing, and all of this stuff. It's really, really concerning. It's almost become like a coup of all of this thing. It just keeps happening. That's basically, I'm concerned with so much, but that's a big thing, is how to stop that. How to just stop this from going on and have the Republicans kind of straighten their backs and get some, just stop it. Also, I can't imagine how any of the Republicans can sit there and let this go on, And as I said, we need our government to be able to be efficient. But anyway, thank you very much. And I have lots more, but
Well, this is the first of many conversations. You mentioned you're a small business owner, and I'm proud to serve on the Small Business Committee in the House of Representatives. It's a committee that, like the Armed Services Committee, continues to be a place where we can actually get things done on a bipartisan basis. We passed 7 bills this week that were actually really good bills. And what I want to say is, I'm looking for common ground wherever it exists. I'm standing my ground wherever I have to on your behalf, on behalf of New Hampshire. And when we talk about unelected billionaires, big business, big tech takeover of the federal government, where you started is, there is a really big difference between a public good and the public trust and private business. Now, in New Hampshire and in this country, small businesses are the beating heart of our economy. And what I'm trying to do, they really are. I want to give it up for small businesses, because small business owners, which are 99% of businesses in New Hampshire, more than 305,000 people in this state are small business employees. They're facing so much uncertainty right now. And it's not just the threat of a trade war and tariffs, which are crippling to small businesses that are trying to operate. They need certainty now more than ever before. But it's because when we look at our economy, it's become more consolidated across the board. And nowhere is that more apparent than in the industry of big tech. And we have got to police the boundaries between the public and the private in this country. Because positions of public trust should have safeguards so that the public can understand the limitations. And so we've seen loopholes, I mentioned at the beginning. I'm helping to lead legislation that would close some of those loopholes that are truly being abused right now by Elon Musk and his team. And once again, I'm all for efficiency and finding it wherever it exists, but Congress, above all, is the place, the institution, the House of Representatives is closest to the people, and we should be in the business of legislating. And that's exactly what we did this week.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Laurie Hamilton. I'm Laurie Hamilton. I'm a systems analyst from Swansea, and I know that some of your colleagues in the House of Representatives have been trying to subpoena Elon Musk to get him to appear and testify under oath. I just wanted to know, in a situation where you were able to question him under oath, what would you ask him to answer for, and what is the utility of asking someone to voluntarily give information when they're a lifelong con artist?
What I'm learning in Congress is that sometimes public hearings can be more performance than substance, but sometimes they can be about substance and performance all at once. You ask a great question. The questions that I would want to ask Elon Musk really have to do with the conflicts of interest that are so apparent. Already a matter of public record. So we really don't need him to come and appear before a congressional committee to be able to point to very specifically and directly contracts that he should have no business overseeing. Sometimes conflicts of interest are hard to spot. In this case, they are not at all hard to spot, and we should be shining a spotlight. I believe that sunlight is one of the most powerful disinfectants in general and specifically in government. And so we will be shining that spotlight on all the conflicts of interest that are a matter of public record. We will be uncovering those that are not yet a matter of public record.
Hi, Maggie. My name is Louise Ewing. I'm from Antrim, New Hampshire. I want to thank you for hosting this, and I also want to thank your office staff. Really gracious with all the phone calls I So on a slightly different note, there is a leaked plan that the federal prison system might turn the federal prison up in Berlin into a detention center for immigrants who are facing civil, not criminal charges. And this location will make it difficult for them to access legal services and to connect with their families. And so what is your stance on this, and the stance of the New Hampshire delegation on ICE having a detention center in New Hampshire?
Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all. I do want to say, we have an amazing team. We're a small but mighty team, and we have our Director of Constituent Services here, Dawn Pollinger, who I hope you'll all have a chance to meet. Chief of Staff Laura Gerard, our District Director, Annie Lentz, who's got the camera right there. I hope you'll all have a chance to meet our team because we really are here to help in every way. And we've got offices across the district, and I hope you will have an office in Keene one day soon. But Dawn and I will definitely be here in Keene for office hours. Thank you for raising that memo. I read it and was alarmed myself. This was a memo that was leaked in, I think, first the LA Times. There's been reporting on it. And like so many things that have happened in the last 56 days, particularly in the last 30 days, we read about what's happening in the press. And that's why I'm really, when we talk about the real bulwarks for our democracy, a free press and a local press I've spent much more time talking to the Keene Sentinel and to local television stations around the district than anywhere else, because they are doing the work of democracy by reporting and by being trusted sources at a time when there is so much disinformation and there's so much distrust, much of it well placed, in social media platforms that have gone awry. With respect to that memo, I read it. I was very concerned about it. We've raised this question directly with the Bureau of Prisons and with ICE directly. We are monitoring this closely. When you talk about access to counsel, I spent 3 years at the Department of Justice, and one of the things that I was most proud of being a part of was creating an office within the Justice Department called the Office for Access to Justice. Now that might sound redundant to some of you. It did to me at first, but when I got to the Department of Justice, one of the first questions I asked was, where is the office that does constituent services? Where is the office that makes sure that we are delivering on the Sixth Amendment protections that our Constitution affords for access to counsel, and that's making sure that people around this country who can't afford a lawyer get access to one, or who are in a position that makes it very hard for them to have access to counsel. Now, I am a lawyer by training, and so we can make all the lawyer jokes in the world later, and we should. But an advocate in a setting, whether it's in immigration courts or in detention centers, there's nothing. This is a sacred and fundamental constitutional right, and something that I've worked much of my life to try to advance. And so these are questions. This is where congressional oversight becomes really important. And this is when I talk about how can you be involved. We really do need lawyers now. And I say that, I don't say that lightly. We need lawyers who are going to help our fellow citizens know their rights, to be represented in courts, and to help us chart a path forward at a time when constitutional protections and the rule of law itself are under enormous strain. And so thank you for that question, and this is something that we are following very, very closely.
Thank you.
I'm Rachel Kowalski. I'm a citizen of Jaffrey, New Hampshire. I also run the Healthy Starts program here in Keene, and that is a family resource center and home visiting program.
Thank you for that.
I was a social worker for the first regime, and then I became program manager for this regime, and our funding is largely federal and state funding. Now, Kelly Ayotte has said that our funding is secured as statewide, but federal funding is already being cut. We lost a diaper grant program that provided 150 diapers per child a month, plus 6 packs of wipes, for families that are in survival mode and barely making it. They are scared. They are scared of losing Medicaid, Medicare, WIC, a number of safety nets. So my question is, what can we do to safeguard this?
Well, first of all, thank you for the work you're doing. After my first day in court, in family court, as a lawyer, I got home and said, I gotta become a social worker. Because the work that you do, there are limits to the law, there are limits to what lawyers can do, but the work that you do and that your organization does, and when we talk about the federal funding that's reaching your organization to deliver some of the most consequential, basic human needs, these aren't a lot of dollars. And so the number one thing I want to say is we've been trying to collect as much information as we can about, there's a big difference between federal dollars that have already been appropriated by Congress and that are promised to you. And to the extent that there is anyone in this room who has faced any disruptions in federal dollars that were promised to you and to the state of New Hampshire, we want to know about it so that we can advocate for you and make sure that those dollars reach our communities. Because this is not allowed, to shut off spigots of dollars that are rooted in federal laws that should be enforced. And so to the extent your organization is facing, and I really look forward to visiting and hearing more about your work, because the work you do is, as I said, it's the vital work of basic services at a time when people are feeling so much pain right now to make ends meet, to make basic ends meet. So number one, we want to know the federal dollars that you rely on so that I can advocate for them more effectively. And that's exactly what I'm working to do every single day. So we have a dedicated form on our website, goodlander.house.gov. We've been collecting information from people across the state, and it's helped me to be an advocate for those dollars and those programs that you rely on to deliver for our community. So thank you.
Representative Goodlander, thank you for being here today. My name is Michelle Trombley, and I'm from this community. I live here now with my young child. I actually live with my parents. Got a lot of skin in the game on this. Also, I have 25 years as an international humanitarian worker. I've worked for the UN for about half of that, and I still have significant amount of student loans. My whole field of work, my whole career has pretty much just disappeared over the past few days. I've had a lot of friends who work for the federal government. A lot of people have lost work because of this, but there's a lot of other people, not just the federal workers, who have been impacted on this. The accountability to nonprofits, to the UN, to different NGOs, a lot of women, children, communities are facing severe situations right now that have an immediate impact on American security, as well as just the reputation and the dignity of this country. We owe a lot of people a lot of money, and we're not paying up. Not to mention sort of the humanitarian impact, humanitarian role, which is very personal to me as well. That aside, I have a lot of questions and a lot of opinions about that, but I want to talk a little bit, or maybe ask you a little bit, what you and other Democratic leaders are doing to engage young people. I love seeing this community turn out today. I think there's been a few jokes that my white hair is kind of being matched here, but I really think that we've lost so many young people. And I'd really like to know what is going to be done to get more engagement of young people in this country for the Democratic leadership.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service to our country and really to the world. The United Nations and the work we do, I just want to tell you at the outset that it is still a bipartisan idea that what we do, international aid, what we do, humanitarian assistance, is about our bottom line national security, and it's about our identity, who we are as the United States of America. The world that we want to live in, we want our kids to grow up in, and that we want, it goes to the basic, we're all created equal. It's the fundamental American idea. And so I want to thank you for what you've done, and I want you to know that this is an issue that still unites us as Americans, and I will fight for that unity and for progress. And it is a dark and heartbreaking day to see people who I've known and respected, people I've loved, who have dedicated their lives to our country, who worked at USAID, who have been treated with such indignity, and who were given 15-minute slots to pack up their bags yesterday at the headquarters. This is wrong. This is not America, and this is something that we are pressing in the courts right now, and that we are pressing in Congress. And that's going to be a long path, but it's one we're not going to give up on. You know, the young people of New Hampshire, the chances I've had, whether it's in our schools, and one of the things I love about this job is it does give me a chance to work with high school students and students that are even younger, are kids. I've visited Head Start programs across the state, and by the way, Head Start has been put on the chopping block. You know, visiting our community college students, our high school students across the board. This is a job, whether it's Don helps us with our high school art competition, which I'm very excited about, gives us a chance to engage the students. We got an app challenge, but fundamentally, you know, I got involved. I'm standing right here in this job today because I had a chance as a young person, growing up in New Hampshire. You know, you learn how to grill a candidate and a member of Congress before you learn how to grill a hot dog, and that's the truth. You do, and that's what this job is about. That's what makes me better at this job. So this is the first of many times where I hope you will challenge me and grill me, because this is the work. This is democracy. And so I want to meet people wherever they are. Our students are our future, and whether it's in schools, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Claudia Deary. This is my husband, John Deary. And I'm going to get emotional because we rely on Medicaid. For the past 30 years, John has had multiple sclerosis. For 25 of those years, we managed. I was a classroom teacher. We managed his care. We raised 2 wonderful kids. But in the past 5 years, his care has become more than I can do, more than I can handle. So now he's received some wonderful services. He's at the Monadnock Adult Day Program, which I'm inviting you. I don't know, I'm not like in the administration of it, I'm inviting you to visit because
I will be there.
amazing people. And I feel like I'm here representing all of the people that attend that program, whose families rely on that program. He benefits from that. We also, through Choices for Independence program, which is a Medicaid program, we receive, these people are amazing.
It's very hard for me to stay on the stage and not come and hug you right now. I just want you to know that.
The Choices for Independence program provides caregiving services. So not only does he get to go to the day program, we have a wonderful caregiver come twice a week to stay with him while I'm working. I had to retire from my classroom teaching job because I needed to be home more with him. But Choices for Independence pays me, not as much as a classroom teacher makes, but pays me a salary to do the caregiving that I would do anyway. These are Medicaid programs. I fear for what will happen to us with these cuts. I also feel a bit helpless, but I decided to come today because I just wanted to share this story and put a face to what we're dealing with. In addition to that, and I know you've already addressed Medicaid, I know you're fighting for us. In addition to that, you wonder about the young people. My 22-year-old son just left for basic training. He joined the National Guard. He's adopted from Ethiopia. They welcomed him. What sickens me, and this is a different subject, but nobody's brought up, what sickens me is the fact that the government would kick trans kids, trans soldiers, people that have served, as if they're less than human. I don't want to go back, and I feel like, how dare they? So thank you.
This is why I wanted to be here today. I just want to say, if you have any doubt about why your voice matters, let's never forget that moment. I certainly won't. I'm going to be bringing your story, what you've shared today, the power and the passion. I say power, I mean it. This is what I am fighting for every single day. You are who I am fighting for every single day. And I just want to thank you again for being here, for your passion, for your advocacy, for everything you've done for our communities, and for what you're going to do, for what we're going to do together in the days ahead. Thank you. I prefer being down here, but I'll go back up there. That's what I'm doing.
I think we have one more question.
Hard act to follow.
I wear the mask because I don't want to take home flu and other bugs to my husband who's immune suppressed. But my question is a whole other subject. I think everyone in this room does not need to be told that climate change is enormously important for all of us. Tell us how you are working with and can work with people who are not convinced economy and to all of the districts all across this country, and how we can move as fast as possible to get rid of fossil fuels and on clean energy.
Well, you know, we live in extraordinary times. We live in times of great uncertainty, but when you look around our country, between the fires, the floods, it's biblical. I mean, it's to those who have any doubt that climate change is real, you really just need to open up your eyes and look around. And one of the first things I did in Congress was to find and I'm pleased to report that there still is a strong bipartisan climate caucus in the House of Representatives, and it's been made even stronger because it's a bipartisan one, and I'm recruiting Republicans to join that caucus, because at this point, addressing the climate crisis, and it is a crisis, it's an existential one for our planet. Language sometimes fails us when we talk about this. It is an existential, it's, you know, some combination of planetary homicide and suicide that we're talking about here. But number one, it's a public safety issue. And my colleagues, whether they're from California, anywhere on the West Coast, they see that, they feel that, they hear that, and we can't allow them to not see and hear that every single day. It's also about jobs, and this is where, you know, one of the really devastating impacts of the first few days of this new administration was to try to put a stop to the federal dollars that have flowed to New Hampshire and to communities across the country from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the most significant piece of climate legislation that the world has ever seen. Those dollars are dollars that, among the dollars that we are fighting for every single day, and this is something that we've taken to the courts, but I'm making the case in Congress too, that this is about jobs, this is about economic development for New Hampshire and for the entire country. And we cannot stop making the case, including and especially to those who don't see what we see. We have to keep amplifying that, but who also may not understand that it's in their interest. This is about jobs, it's about public safety, and we have got to keep making this case.
Maybe you can talk to some of those who really believe in the market, that we need to put a price on carbon, so that the market, and then whatever we take in from that price on carbon should be returned to the people equally, not to the billionaires.
Amen.
So,
I'd like to bring to the group's attention Project Drawdown.
Yes.
Check it out.
so the suggestion was to review Project Drawdown. Thank you. It's a book, and thank you.
No, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
I'm
It's a
looking
whole
forward to
thing.
it.
So, Representative Goodlander, I want to thank you for calling us into community tonight. I want to thank all of our friends and neighbors for being here, my friends and neighbors, your friends and neighbors, but thank you for calling us into community and into conversation. It is a privilege to be here with you tonight. I thank you for your intellectual curiosity, for the passion and tenacity that you're bringing to this role, but also for the incredible heart that you're showing everyone in this room. I feel like we're in good hands. And I think this brings the end of the official Q&A sessions, but what I know about Representative Goodlander is she likes to stay here and to get to talk with some of you. So we're going to close the official program. Again, thank you all for taking the time to be here.
Let me just say, I'm grateful truly to each and every one of you for being here tonight. I work for you. I do, and I want you to put me to work. And so tonight is the first of many conversations. Thank you. I see the Ukrainian flag in the back of this room. A flag that in the Live Free or Die state, it is only appropriate. Thank you all.